We surrounded ourselves with screens and speakers. We thought they gave us control, the ability to speak to anyone, and to be silent when we choose. That was our mistake. We forgot that all communication is a two-way street, and sometimes, on the other end, it's not who you are calling that's listening. Sometimes, it's something that found your number, something that knows your past, or even worse, knows your future. The most terrifying message is not the threat, it's proof. Proof that the walls of your home, of your mind, of your time no longer exist, and that you haven't been alone for a long time. You just didn't know who was listening. I've never told anyone this, because this story doesn't end with a scream, but with a quiet, cold question that I still ask myself every morning when I look in the mirror. My name is Simon, and last month I started getting calls from an unknown number. On the other end was a crying voice, looking for someone named Mark. I told them they had the wrong number. Now, I'm afraid I was the one who was wrong. The first call came late in the evening, around 11. I was watching TV. Unknown number. I answered. On the other end, I heard only soft, muffled crying. "Hello?" I asked. "Mark?" The voice whispered through tears. "Mark, please, come back. I can't do this anymore." I felt uncomfortable. "Sorry," I said. "You have the wrong number." I hung up. Strange, but it happens. An hour later, the phone rang again. Same number. This time, I just declined the call. But before the screen went dark, I felt a chill run down my spine. My name isn't Mark, but that was the name of my best friend in college, a friend I stopped talking to after a terrible argument many years ago. Just a coincidence, I told myself. But I wasn't so sure anymore.
The calls continued, and they became more and more personal. Every evening, always after 11, the same number would call, and the same tearful voice would beg Mark to come back. I stopped answering, but she started leaving voicemails. "Mark, I remember how you loved to walk in the rain. It's raining today," she would say. "Mark, I'm listening to that song again, our song." The details were generic, but they started to scare me. One evening, she said something that made my blood run cold. "Mark, I know you're angry about what happened that night by the lake, but you have to come back." That night? I had never told anyone the details of that fight with Mark. It happened by a lake. We were drunk. I said horrible things to him. After that, we never spoke again. How could she know that? I tried to find a rational explanation. Maybe it was some ex-girlfriend of his who found my number. Maybe it was Mark himself playing a cruel joke. But the voice was filled with such genuine, heartbroken pain that it couldn't be a joke.
Trying to block the number did nothing but bring a new kind of terror. I couldn't take it anymore. I added her number to my block list. That night, the phone didn't ring. I felt an incredible sense of relief. I thought it was over. But the next day, I started getting text messages from different, completely random numbers, and each one contained just a single photo. They were old photos from my college life, ones I hadn't seen in years. Here's Mark and me at a party. Here we are on a hike. And here, that same lake. There was nothing threatening in the photos, but the very fact that she had them and could send them from an endless supply of numbers meant I couldn't hide from her. She had access to my past. I started to doubt my own memory. Maybe I had forgotten something? Maybe more happened that night by the lake than just an argument. I began to fear not her, but my own past, which seemed to have dark spots I couldn't remember.
The conversation with Mark was the point of no return. I couldn't stand it. I found Mark's old number. I didn't know if it was still active. I called several times. Finally, he answered. His voice was cold, distant. "What do you want, Simon?" he asked. Stammering, I told him everything about the calls, the voicemails, the photos, the lake. I expected any reaction, anger, surprise, but he was just silent. When I finished, he said only one sentence, but in such an empty, dead voice that I will never forget it. "Simon," he said, "I don't know who's calling you, but if you want it to stop, just tell her the truth. Tell her what you did." And he hung up. What I did? I didn't understand. All I remembered was a fight. I replayed that night in my head over and over, but there was only drunken yelling and resentment. And a blank.
The last call came last night, and I answered. The same number, the same crying. "Mark," she whispered, and this time I didn't say she had the wrong number. I just remained silent. "Mark, I know you're there," she continued. "Please, say something. Tell me it wasn't you. Tell me you're not to blame for me falling." And in that moment, my world shattered. A memory buried deep in my consciousness burst forth. That night, the lake, the argument, and her, Mark's girlfriend who was with us. She was trying to break us up. I remember pushing her. I remember the sound of the impact as she fell and hit her head on a rock. I remember Mark screaming. And then, nothing. Just a blank. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know if she's alive. My brain just erased it. I stood there with the phone in my hand, the cold truth burning me. They weren't calling for Mark. They were calling for the killer. I don't know if it's really her, or her ghost, or just my own guilt that found a way to speak to me. I only know that now, when an unknown number calls, I'm afraid to answer. Not because of what I might hear, but because of what I might remember.
I've never told anyone this, until today. Because how do you explain that you were driven to a nervous breakdown by a few anonymous numbers in a group chat? It sounds like a childish prank, but it wasn't a prank. They didn't threaten. They didn't insult. They just planned. And the object of their plan was me. My name is Julian. It all started with a sudden notification. One evening, I was sitting at home when my phone vibrated. "You have been added to the group Planning." I opened the message. It was a normal group chat. It had my number and 3 others, unknown to me, with no names. I figured someone had just made a mistake, creating a chat for work or school. I wrote, "Sorry, you must have the wrong person," and was about to leave the group when the first message came from one of the numbers. It was short. "No, we didn't make a mistake. We've been waiting for you." That was strange. I decided not to reply, just to watch.
The messages in the chat became more and more unsettling. At first, they were nonsensical. One number wrote, "Subject is at home." Another replied, "Copy that. Observation is active." I laughed. It had to be some teenagers playing spy games. But then the messages became more specific. Subject is watching TV, living room. I went cold. I really was sitting in the living room watching TV. They must see the light in my window, I thought, even though my curtains were closed. The next message. Volume is at 2.2. He always sets it to 2.2. I looked at the remote. The volume was exactly at 2.2. It was a habit of mine. Panic set in. How could they know that? I ran to the window, peered out into the street. No one. A new message. He went to the window. He's nervous. Good. Isolation became their main weapon. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to the police. I'm being scared in a group chat? They would have just laughed. I tried to block the numbers, but they would just add me from new ones. I deleted the messenger, but they found me on another one. They were everywhere. I started to be afraid of my own home. Every sound made me jump. One day they wrote, "A guest is coming tonight. Female, brunette." I wasn't expecting anyone, but in the evening, my friend Sarah, a brunette, did indeed stop by. They knew. They knew my every plan, my every move. I tried to tell Sarah everything. She listened, looked at the messages. "Julian," she said, "it's just one of your friends playing a prank on you. It's not funny, but it's not scary." She didn't believe me. And then I understood. Their goal wasn't to scare me to death. Their goal was to make everyone think I was paranoid, to isolate me.
The photograph confirmed my worst fears. Last night, I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep. My phone vibrated. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't resist. It was a message in the group, from a new number. There was no text, just a single photo. I opened it. It was a photo, taken from a dark corner of my own bedroom. It showed me sleeping in my bed. The photo had been taken a few minutes ago. I jumped up, turned on the light. The room was empty. The door was bolted. The windows were locked. No one could have gotten in. But the photo, it was real. This wasn't a joke. They weren't just watching from the street. They were here, in my home, right now. But how? I searched every inch of the apartment. No one. I sat on the floor, holding my phone, and I was shaking.
The last message came an hour ago, and now I'm waiting. After the photo, I sat not moving until morning. The chat was silent. But an hour ago, the last message came. It was from all three numbers at once. They wrote, Phase 1, observation, complete. Phase 2, preparation, complete. Phase 3, contact, commencing. I'm sitting in my living room. I have barricaded the door. I'm holding a heavy vase in my hands. I don't know who they are. Maybe it's a cult. Maybe it's a government experiment. Maybe it's just a group of madmen. I don't know what contact means, but I can hear the elevator in the hallway by my door quietly dinging, and I know it's them. They are coming, and I don't know if I will survive this encounter.
Have you ever received a voicemail that made no sense? Bad connection, static. Now imagine you received such a message, but it was from yourself, and it was dated for tomorrow. My name is Marcus, and last Tuesday I received a voicemail from my future self, warning me about something terrible. The problem is, I didn't understand what. The first message came at 3:04 p.m. I was at work. I saw a missed call from my own number. It was strange. I thought it was some kind of network glitch. And then I saw the notification for a new voicemail. I opened it. It was short, only 15 seconds, and it was from my number, but dated for the next day. The quality was terrible, as if it was recorded during a hurricane. Through the noise, I could barely make out my own voice,
frantic, terrified. It was shouting fragments of phrases. "Don't go there. It's a trap, Marcus. The blue car. Don't get in." And then the recording cut off. I listened to it several times. It was my voice. But what blue car? What trap? It seemed like a stupid prank.
The small details started coming true, and my skepticism wavered. I tried to forget about the message, but the next day, Wednesday, strange things started to happen. In the morning, my coffee maker broke just as I was about to make coffee. I had heard about it on the recording, but paid no mind. At work, a project I was working on was suddenly canceled. That was also on the recording. These were small things that could be dismissed as coincidences, but there were too many of them. I listened to that message again and again, trying to make out other words. The blue car. Where was I supposed to see a blue car? I started looking at every blue car on the street. My paranoia was growing. I told my girlfriend about it. She said someone probably used a voice cloning program to prank me. It was the most logical explanation. But why were these small things coming true?
The choice that changed everything I made in the evening. I was supposed to go to a friend's birthday party out of town. I called a cab. 10 minutes later, I got a notification. Your taxi has arrived. Blue Ford Focus. License plate. I looked out the window. A blue car was parked by my entrance. And I froze. The voice from the future was screaming at me, "Blue car, don't get in!" This was it. This was the choice. I stood there, looking at that car. What should I do? Believe in an impossible message and stay home looking like an idiot to my friend? Or ignore it and get in the car? I didn't know what danger awaited me. A car crash, maybe? A robbery? I made my choice. I called my friend, apologized, and said I was sick. And then I canceled the taxi. I stayed home.
The news the next morning should have brought relief, but it only brought more questions. I woke up with the feeling that I had avoided something terrible. I turned on the news, and I saw a report about a horrific accident on the highway leading to my friend's town. A head-on collision. Both drivers had died. And one of the cars, it was a blue Ford Focus, the same one. I felt a mix of horror and relief. The message had saved my life. I wasn't crazy, it was real. But the joy quickly turned to anxiety. Who sent that message? If it was me from the future, how did I survive to send it? And what if, by avoiding that crash, I had set off a chain of events that will lead to something even worse? I hadn't changed my fate. I had only postponed it. I received the last message an hour ago. After that day, the call stopped. I lived in relative peace for a few weeks. I thought it was over. But an hour ago, I got another voicemail from my own number, dated for tomorrow. The quality this time was perfect, no static. It was my own voice, but very calm, cold, almost robotic. It said only one sentence. "Marcus, thank you for staying home that day. You made the right choice. Now it's my turn." I don't know what that means. Whose turn? A turn for what? I'm sitting in my apartment. I've locked all the doors. But I know that locks won't save me, because the threat isn't from the outside. I don't know who sent me that first frantic message, but I'm afraid I know who sent the second one.